First of all, thank you very much for accepting this interview. I would like, first of all, for you to introduce yourself.
My name is Wanuri Kahiu and I'm a filmmaker.
Thank you. So, first question, you're here at the Cannes Festival. Your film has been selected. How was your first experience here?
It's amazing to be selected at Cannes. I mean, Cannes is the biggest festival in the world, but it's also just incredibly prestigious. So you get to walk the red carpet, you get to walk up the same stairs that a lot of cinema greats have walked up, including many, many African great filmmakers. And it's such a privilege to be honored in the same place that you've seen, like, forefathers and foremothers of cinema, of African cinema, be there and feel like you belong. And it really is an acknowledgement of the work and the talent of Kenyans as a small emerging film economy.
It's very good that you talk about Kenya, because I want you to share with us, as a Kenyan, how you partially answered, but how was the welcoming and how was the impact of being in such a prestigious international global platform?
I think that because this was the first Kenyan feature film, people were very excited to see what perspective of Kenya that we're bringing, and they were also incredibly loving and generous and supportive. And at every point we felt such courage and such love as a result of being here. It was a wonderful reception. We were so embraced and we were so glad for it.
Was it from both sides, the African side and the international side as well?
We got a lot of support, not only from the international people here in Cannes who were celebrating it, but many people in Kenya were also celebrating it. We've been getting lots of tweets and lots of encouragement. Even despite the fact the film was banned, there's many people at home who are so excited that this film is out and that it represents Kenya in cinema, in Cannes.
As well as the continent.
Yes.
Talking about the controversy around the movie, first of all, why did you pick this topic?
I wanted to tell an African love story more than anything else. So when we started to look for books to translate from literature to film, we found many different books, but none of them were as beautiful love stories as this one was. Jambula Tree is so tender, so kind, so loving, and has such a great feminine view of Africa, and that's what we wanted to put forth, our idea of young women in love in Africa. It was incredibly important that was the center of the film.
And how do you leave this controversy back home, based on our very conservative culture from the country to the continent?
You know, one of the things that I truly believe about Africa, whether or not we've realized it ourselves as Africans, is that we're generous, we're kind, and we're loving. Even in the motto of the Kenyan national motto is peace, love, and unity. If we think about the motto of those three things, then it means that we're an inclusive nation. It means that we do not discriminate. It means that we are people who come together. Even when we see differences, we still support each other. That's the belief that I have for Africa. Whether or not we've realized it, that is the belief that I have, and I strongly hope that within my generation, maybe even in my children's generation, there will be more embracing of people that we don't understand, because we're not all alike. We're not all made alike, and there will never be a day where every single person is exactly the same. And with that in mind, we should be more unapologetically loving and caring and supportive of each and every single one of us.
Thank you for that. I'm sure you realize that you are now an ambassador, not only generational wise, but also from Kenya, as well as the continent. And as a woman, how do you just embrace this new role?
I don't think it's a role. I think I'm just doing my job, and I think that it's encouraging that being able to do this job, other people see it as a strength and see it as courage. I'm just doing my job, and I really love to do my job, and part of my job is celebrating the joy and the hope and the love that we see in Africa, and wanting that joy, hope, and love to be spread. That image has to be synonymous with Africa. When you think of Africa, I want you to think of joyful, hopeful, loving people. And I'm going to make sure that through my art and through Afro bubblegum art, which is fun, fierce and frivolous, hopeful and joyful African art, that we can do that.
Thank you for talking about this platform that you co-founded. I wanted to know, before even thinking of this platform, how was it for you to break these walls and push this door to be where you are now?
I have always been a little stubborn about what I want to do, and I think that's the reason that we are here today, is because even when people tell you no, you can't do that, no, you can't say that, no, that is not your place, you still have to do it if it's something that you believe passionately in. We cannot deny our human existence, and by denying it we become lesser people, lesser beings. So I really wanted to embrace everything that I can be, and I know that I'm not the fullest of my potential yet. So there's more to come.
And we actually hope that you're going to go further, and you know, you said it's the first movie for Kenya, but we want many more.
We want many more.
Kenya,
yes.
Or any other African country.
Yes.
Do you feel, because now you saw other African producer and movies this year on the Cannes Festival, do you feel the sense of community around it, and do you feel that your movie compared to others has the same exposure, or how do you feel about the African community this year on the festival?
I think there's a couple of African films here at the festival at the moment, and it's really encouraging to be able to support them, meet the filmmakers. I haven't met all of them yet, but I know that we're going to be hopefully traveling together to different festivals as well, and we'll continue to meet each other, and we'll be like a graduating group.
Exactly.
Of Cannes.
Definitely. I really like what you said. It's better, it's good for you to be the one to be at the top, but it's even better if you manage to carry the rest of the continent, because you're gonna be our hope. Now if we look back to our continent, what do you think that you can bring to us, and how do you feel that this platform will you know, be beneficial for the rest of the continent?
I think it's important that we continue to have images where we want to meet each other, that encourage us to meet each other as Africans, that encourage us to collaborate with each other, because what was amazing about this film, it was very, very Pan-African. It was written in Uganda by a Ugandan writer, it was co-written by me, a Kenyan writer, and then I wrote with a South African writer, it was produced by another South African writer. There were many African hands touching this project, loving this project and bringing it forth. And so we feel that the more of us who can collaborate with each other, the more Pan-African experiences we can create with each other, then we're really, really doing the people who came before us the biggest favor by remembering them through our own collaborations.
Thank you. And again, based on the fact that it's kind of like, do you feel that our generation has this Pan-African vision more than before? Because that's the feeling that we have. Like, we don't really see through we see through the boundaries, and that's how you can get an amazing team to create this piece of art that you've done with this movie.
I think the idea of Pan-African thought has been there for a long time. I mean, since the 30s we've been discussing the idea of Pan-African thought, not only in Africa but even in Paris and London. There were many intellectuals who came together to discuss this idea, and that was also a very exciting time. But now, because we're able to communicate with each other, because we're able to, the ease of seeing each other, the flow of ideas between us is easier, and therefore we'll be seeing more Pan-African thought rising, but it's always been there. It's part of our history, it's part of our DNA.
So what made the difference? Why this year do you think that we can kind of see this whole, you know, vibe around Africa? What do you think that changed?
I think that this vibe around Africa is really because we're recognizing that 70% of the generation I think the change that we're seeing is that 70% of Africans are below the age of 35. There's no way you can even begin to ignore the number of young Africans that exist on the continent. Those are the people who are going to change our lives. They're the people that we're leaving our planet to. They're the people who are going to push new thoughts forward, and we need to give them the space, the ability, the freedom to do that, so that they can take us forward. We want to be the shoulders that they stand on, so that they can be taller than we are.
Lastly, I want to ask you, what would be your hope after this experience at the Cannes Festival?
My hope after Cannes is that many, many, many people get to see the film, not only in France or in Europe, but definitely moving into Africa, because this story was made for them, so that they can see themselves, so that they can see themselves in love, so that they can also recognize that we are so many different people, but we're so similar in one thing: in peace, in love, and in unity. And those are the things that we should be embracing the most about us.
And if you would have to talk, I would be that person to a young producer or storyteller like you, who would, you know, see you through this whole platform. What would you say to him to give him hope to, you know, become what you did today?
I think for any filmmaker who's coming up at the moment in the industry, I think what they must remember to do is just to complete their projects. Once you start a project, complete it. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be complete. And the more projects you complete, the more portfolios you start to build up. I'm only here because I've been working for 10 years and I've made 6 films. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a concerted effort, and it's important to keep working.
And I was among the crowd, so I'm rooting for you. So what would you do if you win this year?
It would be amazing to win, because it's a strong, strong, strong acknowledgement, not only of us as filmmakers in Kenya, but of a community of people who are different, a community of people who are not seen and sometimes not even heard. And every single one of us deserves to be heard. And that is the most important thing. And just my presence here is a victory. And I want to acknowledge my presence because it is the presence of young African women in cinema.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.